This time, they're building those skills that will later help them connect things in their world and make sense of concepts such as math, reasoning, language, science, etc. When I was trying to think of an example to demonstrate this, I was reminded of a story told by education change advocate and author Ken Robinson in his book The Element about multi-billionaire entrepreneur Richard Branson. The story is that though he's been a successful businessman, he still struggles with interpreting a profit and loss sheet, and neither can he understand the difference between net and gross incomes. His director of finance finally had to make some connections for Branson. He gave him the image of throwing a net into the sea, and everything that was caught in the net was his net income, and he could keep that, and everything else was the gross. This connection made the difference to Branson, and he was able to keep up with his finance meetings better after that. Richard Branson, as successful as he has been, in some ways still lacks this skill of making connections because of the difficulties early in his life. He struggled with the concept all through school, which manifested itself most in his difficulties with math. He, like many students, thought he just didn't have a math brain. It was more likely he just had not been taught how to make connections in patterns and information. He did not learn until later in his life that dyslexia contributed to his disconnect in these areas. He is proof that if these skills are not learned as young children, us as adults are not doomed. We can still learn them, but the road is much easier for the child that has the ability to see connections and work within them. To give you a concrete idea of the role making connections plays in our lives as learners, I will refer to the book How Learning Works: 7 Research-Based Principles for Smart Teaching. In this book, the author talks about this principle of making connections in the section on how students organize knowledge. On pages 49 to 51, the book talks about expert knowledge versus novice knowledge. The author states that differences in how these two groups process knowledge is dependent on the density of connections the student has among the concepts, facts, skills, and everything else that has been acquired at that point. The graphic that you see here on the screen shows examples of connections a person can make in organizing new knowledge. The ones across the top are novice-type connections. You would see this type of organization of knowledge if the student had not yet been able to make connections across different elements that he was learning. This student is just absorbing bits of information in mostly isolation without seeing connections across other subject areas or recognizing themes in what is being learned. The second boxes on the bottom of the graphic, they show an expert learner making connections. You can see the learner knows how the information fits in with other information and how the different pieces all fit together to give an overarching picture. You can see from the graphic a learner that has more points connected through experience is going to be able to incorporate new knowledge easier. Our job as adults in children's lives is to provide those dots and to help the children in making the connection, those connecting lines where they belong.